What's going on, everybody? It is that time again. It is Sooners Illustrated Podcast, episode 79 on this Monday, April 29th, 2024. Last show of April. Last show of year one of Sooners Illustrated. We're going to hit a full year on Wednesday. It'll be May 1st. Not for the show. We didn't really get this thing going until like the summer, but the site launched on May 1st. We're coming up on our 1 year Annie. Pretty cool. James Jackson, Tom Green, myself, Josh Callaway with you. Got a few things we wanted to hit. Obviously, Oklahoma picked up a commit yesterday, a pretty good one. We'll break that down in just a moment. The NFL draft was over the weekend. 3 Sooners got drafted. We'll break that down a little bit. Maybe the biggest storyline, the one that didn't. We'll talk about that a little more in just a moment. Basketball got back in the transfer portal, and we'll also do a little Diamond Sports catch-up as we get ready to move into the month of May, the stretch run, and the really the most fun time of year for both OU softball and baseball. We'll do a little bit of that on the back end. But guys, let's start with the recruiting side of things here coming up first. If you're with us on Thursday, Colin and I broke it down. Courtland Guillory was going to be announcing his commitment on Sunday. Colin felt good about it, put in a crystal ball prediction in favor of OU, and then boom, that's the way it went. Guillory committed Oklahoma yesterday. He's a composite 4-star cornerback, number 31 cornerback in the class in the composite. Again, another guy from down the road there in Texas, at Spring, Texas. Guys, I've talked about with Colin a lot over the last several months. Obviously, this past class was all about the defensive line, and for good reason. David Stone, Jaden Jackson, all the guys we talked about a million times. This next kind of crop, paired with what they did do in this previous class with your Jaden Harries and your Reggie Powers and everybody else, the secondary recruiting is just on fire right now with Jay Valai and Brandon Hall. They're building a monster in a major way. Courtland Guillory, a big part of it. There's some more names on the horizon as well, but the latest here, Courtland Guillory, bring him into town. Another really nice pickup here for Oklahoma, obviously.
Yeah, the thing that stands out to me, just like watching some of his highlights and then reading the great analysis that Colin put on the site yesterday, the physicality and just the way that he attacks that position. He said that when he first spoke to Jay Valai and he got offered. Jay Valai said that he plays like a 5-star caliber cornerback. And the big thing there is just his physicality and that he plays angry. And if you remember back to, last fall when we spoke with Jay Valai and all the assistants before the start of fall camp, he's one of the guys on staff that has prior SEC experience. So he knows what it takes to play cornerback in that conference. Sure. And the physicality is one of the really big things going up against some of those bigger receivers in the SEC. And I think they're clearly recruiting for the SEC. And that's just one of the big things that stands out to me when you look at Courtland Guillory and what he can bring and how he kind of projects to the next level.
It seems like this defensive back room is just getting more added depth to it. Like we were very comfortable going into this season. I mean, you had some holes here and there that you wanted to fill, and I think OU's doing a very good job of filling all of those holes now. So like getting a guy like this who's physical and you can add him to, this lineup. I mean, we already talked about Michael Boganowski at the spring game, a guy like that. He's already physical enough. And you bring a guy like that, this guy in, it's like you're going to have 2 really good guys, the next season that are going to be really, really hard hitters and things like that can really, scare some offenses, scare some players. So it would help with that intimidation factor as OU gets into this SEC realm and things like that, trying to put their stamp on the new conference. So this is a good pickup. I mean, Colin broke it down, as you all said. A lot of good things about this guy, a lot of good things about this kid. So, I mean, I like where OU's at, as we said. So,
He's got good size. He's already 6 feet. You imagine he might grow another inch or 2. Sure. He's got a long frame, just kind of another one of those rangy corners that we talk about that you're going to need going up against some of those taller receivers in the SEC.
Mm-hmm. And I gotta think like this is, one of those reasons why maybe Josiah Wagner would, transfer out. I think he's at Cal now, right? Yeah, he transfers out and moves. Like this room just keeps getting more filled up, man. It's like he has to find a place where he can, be as productive as he can be. I know he had a lot of high expectations about him, coming in when he was recruited, but this room just keeps getting, just good. So that's good for OU. It's a good situation to have. I guess a good problem to have. You got too many guys now, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because, over the last couple of years, it seems like every single guy on OU staff has had their own heater at some point. We talked about it with the defensive line with Todd Bates, Mikael Chavis, and then, Emmett Jones has had his stretches. Certainly Brandon Hall for a while. It was like, oh my gosh. Jay Valai's on one right now. Yeah. And the cornerback room is continuing to stockpile. So they picked up Malik Hawkins whenever that was, 2-3 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more guys on the horizon that we talked about with Colin, a bunch. Your Kobe Sellers, your obviously Tristan Haynes, the guy that James, very well. I mean, there's more big fish hanging out there that Valai is chasing. So they just continue to pile up talent. It's what you do. Courtland Guillory is their 6th highest guy right now in terms of the rating in their 25 class of the 14 guys they have. 2nd highest on the defensive side, just behind Trent Wilson. So it's a good get, obviously, and a guy that I know Colin thinks very highly of, and obviously we trust his judgment very highly here. And so another good get for Oklahoma. They stay hot in the recruiting show. That 25 continuing to pick up guys and pick up momentum and steam. That's going to just continue to build and build as it has every year under Brent Venables through the spring and then the summer, as it just they kind of just pick up that momentum more and more and get on fire a little bit. So a good get there with Courtland Guillory. As far as from future Sooners to former ones, NFL draft was over the week. We don't do a ton of NFL, obviously pro stuff, but we wanted to get a little bit of the draft recap here over the weekend. So 3 Sooners got drafted. Obviously, we talked about it a lot kind of around pro day and stuff, that Oklahoma had the longest streak of any program in college football of having at least 4 guys drafted. We thought that was going to be in some peril, and it was. The streak has ended. They only had 3 guys get taken. Not the 3, though, that we thought necessarily. I mean, Tyler Guyton was a lock. He was going to be a first round. He goes in the first round to the Cowboys. Walter Rouse, we felt good about. He goes 6th round to the Vikings. But then Jonah Laulu goes 7th round to the Colts. Andrew Rame, undrafted. We definitely, if you had told me before the draft Laulu gets picked, I would have said the streak probably gets extended then, because I would have thought Andrew Rame gets taken. He doesn't. Now he's signed as an undrafted free agent. But probably the biggest surprise of the draft is the fact that Rame, who left school early, did not get drafted. What was the biggest takeaway or thought, your favorite landing spot, whatever it was that jumped out to you guys from where Oklahoma guys kind of wound up from the NFL draft?
Yeah, I think for me the biggest surprise was Jonah Laulu getting drafted there in the 7th round of the Colts. Oklahoma even posted, actually it was the Colts that posted a video yesterday, I think it was, or either after the draft. He thought he was getting prank called because he wasn't anticipating going in the 7th round at that point. He thought he was going to be an undrafted free agent when Chris Ballard, the Colts GM, called him.
Awesome moment. Awesome.
Yeah, those videos are always great to watch. The one with Walter Rouse is great. The one with Tyler Guyton was great. Always cool to see these kids, get their dreams, actualized. But yeah, Jonah Laulu getting drafted was a bit of a surprise to me. There was some buzz building up over this last week that, hey, this is a guy that maybe is going to go in the 7th round. Certainly at his pro day, he stole the show among all those guys. Tested really well. Just his numbers comparable to the defensive tackles that were at the NFL Combine, a few weeks earlier. Really good athleticism that wasn't necessarily reflected in his production his 2 years at Oklahoma. Pretty modest production. I think he had like 31 total tackles over his 2 seasons with the Sooners after transferring in from Hawaii. But a guy who clearly has some potential and good athletic ability that they think can project well to the next level. So curious to see just kind of how his path continues and, if he can stick with the Colts. It's always hard as a late rounder to, make it onto the active roster. But that was probably the biggest surprise to me.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty much just a shout out to the 3 that got drafted, got their dreams actualized, as Tom just said. I mean, but you got some other signings that I really liked. I like Drake Stoops going to the Rams. I think that's a pretty good fit for him. I mean, it's not a team that has too high of expectations this year, and they've shown that they can, have the slot receiver to be really, really good for them. So maybe he can get out there and kind of, try to replicate that for that offense and things like that. And he could have maybe a good career in the NFL if he performs that, even as an undrafted, signing and things like that. I mean, Andrew Rame was the biggest surprise, I think, of all of us, right? I mean, he didn't get selected at all. I mean, you leave early
and not get drafted.
You're expected. So you're hearing something like, okay, they're saying you're gonna go here. That's the only reason you would leave early, right? So like that was a surprise. That was a big surprise there. I mean, that's the biggest takeaway I feel like, of that. Like maybe all the information that you get isn't necessarily accurate. Maybe I don't know how things have changed for him. I don't know how that worked out, but that was funny.
Yeah, I think as the draft got closer, it became clear that he was kind of a fringe guy. When I was looking at all the mock drafts, I guess the day before the first round, There's only one or two that had him as a 7th rounder. Everybody else kind of had him going undrafted. But still, like you said, a guy who was a 3-year starter, 2-time All Big 12 selection, to leave college early, forgo your final year of eligibility to declare for the draft, and then go undrafted. You feel like you probably either messed up somewhere along the way with your pre-draft process, or you just got a little bit some bad advice, and it kind of hurts both ways. Obviously Oklahoma's center position was a little bit of a question with that rebuilt offensive line this spring, though I think they got an upgrade there now with Branson Hickman taking over one of the top graded centers in college football last season, with him and Joshua Bates probably competing for that job in fall camp. But Andrew Ram, it is tough, going undrafted after you declare early. But on the flip side, sometimes when you're that late in the draft, it's almost better off being an undrafted free agent than a 7th rounder in some aspects, because you can kind of pick your landing spot. Because at that point, all these guys are being recruited again by these NFL teams, and they're weighing some offers. So at least he got to kind of pick his spot there, and he'll start out with the Carolina Panthers. But I'm with James. I really like the fit of Drake Stoops signing with the LA Rams after going undrafted. Certainly with what they've been able to do with receivers, guys like Cooper Kupp. If Drake can make the roster, I think he has a chance to stick in the NFL at some way, because all he's done throughout his career is kind of prove people wrong and kind of take an unconventional path, going from walk on to eventually earning that scholarship, and then that breakout senior year. Doesn't have the the tangibles, the speed, the size, but he gets open, he runs good routes, and he's sure-handed, and that's what you need from a slot receiver.
Yep. Also, shout out to McKay for winning his Super Bowl ring.
There you go.
Going for the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean,
yeah. And Isaiah Coe is also signed as unsigned. He signed with the Colts.
With both those guys, it's kind of cool, obviously, because Isaiah Coe and Jonah Laulu, get to go in there together with the Colts and try to build on it. And then for McCade, linking back up with Wanya Morris, obviously the Creed Humphreys there with the Chiefs, Hollywood Browns there now. They got a long snapper from Oklahoma too. So
they're loaded.
They got a lot of Oklahoma flavor there. So you always like to see, when these guys can, have a connection. And obviously for Tyler Guyton, guy that grew up just outside of Austin, getting to play for the Cowboys now, grew up a Cowboys fan, I'm sure. So another cool moment for him. And obviously just down the road from Norman too, a few hours. So that cool connections all around.
It's actually, I forgot to mention Cole. I mean, that's a cool story for him, because he also came to Oklahoma with something to prove. Something I didn't get necessarily recruited to the top, biggest schools at the time, and then I kind of worked my way into it. So now he gets in the NFL and things like that. So that's a really cool story for him. Hopefully, he can make the most of that opportunity out there.
For sure. Yeah, you guys cover most of it. I mean, obviously, Bill Beanbo continues to pile up NFL players.
13 of them now.
2 more now. Yeah, 13. 2 more this year. Another first rounder. Had Anton Harrison last year, Guyton this year. So, that's the biggest and easiest recruiting tool in the world. The guy just puts you in the NFL. It's insane. Andy Reid loves his OU offensive lineman, like you guys said, with McCade signing there. Yeah, the Andrew Ring thing, it is just it's a double twist of the knife both ways, because both parties are thinking we could have used you. We wish you would have stayed. We had no centers on the team. Now you picked up Hickman, but for a while it was we have no centers. Would have loved to have your multi-time All Big 12 center back, but he leaves early and he doesn't even get drafted. So that just stinks for everyone, for both parties. I love the Drake Stoops fit like you guys. I was a little surprised also that Reggie Pearson didn't find a landing spot. He tweeted about it yesterday, kind of well, this sucks, he didn't wind up with the team. Not that I thought he was going to get drafted, because he was probably not going to, but that's a guy we've seen it. He's athletic. He can really hit, He's a good. I mean, I've seen guys all over the place get opportunities, get signed undrafted free agent. Surprised he didn't, and he could still, but as of now, nothing. So I was a little surprised by that. But everybody else found a landing spot, and we'll see how they all do. Like Drake Stoops said at Pro Day, he just needs an opportunity. He needs to open that door a little, and he'll make the most of it. And so we'll see how it all goes. It'll be fun to watch these guys at the next level.
And just real quick, circling back on the Bill Bedenbaugh thing, after the first round, when Tyler Guyton was selected, going into day 2 there, he was at 12 offensive linemen that he has helped develop to get drafted since he took over at Oklahoma. During that same span that he's been at Oklahoma, only 2 schools had produced more drafted offensive linemen, and that was Alabama and Georgia. LSU had also had 12.
Yeah.
When I looked it up, though, each of those schools averaged like 4 or 5 different offensive line coaches during that time. So it just kind of speaks to, Bill Bedenbaugh's longevity and also just his track record kind of being unmatched compared to some of these other schools over the last decade, just being able to get guys in the league. And then from there, it's, it's on them to continue to develop and stick in the league. And, we've seen some of them do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Guyton and Rouse too. Rouse came 1 year. That was the whole idea was 1 year, give me the NFL, and they did it for him. And then Tyler Guyton, to turn him into a first rounder, far from a sure thing. It's not like he took he transferred to TCU, he was a 1 year starter, not even that really, obviously he didn't finish the year. And so to turn him into a first rounder, it just, Bill Bedenbaugh knows what he's doing. And I know sometimes he's a polarizing name for some reason for you fans sometimes, because the offensive line has been in a state of flux at times, but you can't really argue with the success in that regard. He puts a lot of guys, and NFL teams know that. That's why they continue to draft him. They know if you get a guy from OU under Bill Bedenbaugh, he's going to be polished. He's going to have a chance to help you, and so that's why it keeps happening. So NFL draft in the books, and again, we'll keep an eye on all those guys as they begin their careers. We'll see who can make the teams, things like that. It's hard to do, but we'll see what they all can do. Let's do a little bit of portal. Surprisingly quiet in the football portal. Still waiting on any new movement. Obviously, we talked about it with Colin on Thursday. Josiah Wagner hopped in the portal. He found a new team crazy quick. He landed at Cal like just a day or two after the fact. So he must have had a pretty idea of where he was headed on that one. So he goes out west, but to the ACC now. Got to rethink our whole brain on that. Still waiting on some movement as far as Dominic Williams. Still Oklahoma chasing that. If you're a VIP subscriber, kind of the latest there. Oklahoma's still feeling like they have a decent shot to figure that out. But otherwise, nothing else in the football portal. The basketball portal, however, did make another addition, did Oklahoma, and they need good news. And they got some good news yesterday. Jaden Jones from Long Beach State committed to the Sooners. Averaged 12 points a game last year for the Beach, which is their name, which is insane in
great nickname
in and of itself. I talked about it on Thursday with Colin. When they got Kobe Elvis from Dayton, they just needed some good news for just so bad. And they got some. You hope maybe that gets a little bit of momentum going. Now they've got another one with Jaden Jones coming in from Long Beach State. They still think they probably have a shot at Brandon Garrison. That's kind of a weird situation right now, but they still feel like they have a shot. Tom, obviously you've been all over it. The pickup for Jones is kind of an overall temperature check, I guess, on where you're at with the team right now.
I think this is a sneaky good addition for this team. He's not a flashy name, but he's a guy that's got a lot of experience. I believe he's played in 112 career games. He's got 1 year of eligibility left, and he's a really good 3-and-D pickup for them. Career 37% shooter, I believe. Last season shot about 37.7%, if I'm not mistaken, had career high 12 points. And he was doing it on good volume, too. He was shooting 6 3-pointers per game. And good shooter, good defender on the perimeter and on the wing. He was the Big West Defensive Player of the Year 2 seasons ago. Just really solid defender this past season. I believe he had career highs in steals and blocks. Again, this almost feels like not quite a 1-for-1, because I think he might be a little bit of a better defender, but a very comparable replacement for Rivaldo Soares, a guy that's got experience, comes in, plays for you on the wing there, gives you kind of, what you need on both ends. It isn't going to, light up the box scoring, I don't think, but he's a good complementary piece that you need. Probably a glue guy, really. But yeah, no, I really like this pickup for them. Again, not a splashy name, but the other thing that really stands out about him, and kind of, you're starting to see a pattern here with the 2 pickups they have in Kobe Elvis and Jaden Jones, is that these guys have played in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Long Beach State was in the NCAA tournament this past season. They were a 15th seed after winning the Big West Conference tournament. Dayton made the conference tournament too. Oklahoma's roster last year had nobody with any NCAA tournament experience. Mm-hmm. Yeah, not saying that's necessarily a terrible thing, but when you have guys that have been there before and kind of know what it takes to get over that hump, I think it's a smart pivot for Porter Moser and his staff after they missed out on some guys like Sean Padula and Zeke Mayo and Drake Overton, or Kevin Overton rather, from Drake. I think it's a smart pivot and a good kind of plan B for them to move forward with guys like Kobe Elvis and Jaden Jones.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a better pickup than maybe it'll look on paper for the, like he is a good player. It is when you've had the offseason OU has had, and you go get somebody from Long Beach State, there is going to be the reaction of like, okay, we were chasing guys from other Power Fives, but he is a good player. He is a good player, legitimately. And I don't know where he'll fit in the rotation. He may start. I don't know what the team's going to look like at all right now. But it's the guy you need to pick up. You continue to try and just, like I said, build momentum. And I know they feel like they still have a shot at Garrison. They haven't given that up. It's been a weird recruitment for him. You would have thought he'd be somewhere by now, but he's not. He's still figuring it out. You struck out on Padula and Overton, but you're hoping you can maybe still get him. If you can get him and you bring Jalen Moore back, you can talk yourself into like maybe, they're still chasing RJ Godfrey from Clemson. I don't really know how that's going to go, but they had him on a visit, so they're trying to piece this thing together. I don't know. We talked about it on Thursday with Colin. Like it's kind of just, it is what it is. They're trying to piece it together. They struck out a lot of their top choices, but they're still trying to figure it out, basically. So good get though. Solid ad for Moser and the staff there with Jones. So, all right, keep the sports train rolling. We'll go to a couple more. We'll do the Diamond Sports. We'll start with softball. James, they were in Orlando. They swept UCF. Took care of business like they needed to do. They're in first place in the Big 12 by a game going into the final weekend, which is Bedlam, which will be in Norman. It'll be a circus. It'll be a zoo there for that. Bedlam softball in Norman. Really the first really big series that Loves Field has had. It'll be wild, I'm sure. He'll be covering it for us. I guess where are you kind of at on how the team is kind of playing right now? We haven't really talked since they kind of had the series loss for the first time. We haven't really talked about them on the show too much. How have you kind of seen them bounce back from that? Where's your confidence level going into this weekend? Just kind of give an overall little temperature check on where you're kind of at with them right now.
Mm-hmm. I think that short lull they had in the season. You talked about that conference series loss. They had a 3-3 stretch there, which is very uncanny and uncharacteristic for this softball team. But since then, they've kind of found their footing. Even Patty Gasso has even said it. I feel like we're gelling now. And we're starting to see some good results. And you're seeing that just that last game against UCF. I mean, there was a hiccup there. They were down early 2-0 to that team, and they had to come back and fight their way back to win that game. They won it. What was it, 11-7, I believe, 11-6, something like that. It was a very good win for them. They had 5 home runs in that game, and it just showed how much better they're hitting, and being able to string hits together is starting to take place here. And that was the biggest thing, was just not doing it at the same time. Everybody was getting their hits. They just weren't doing it at the same time. And that was their reason for their lull, because you look at the numbers, they're still leading in batting average throughout the country, the whole team. They're still leading in all those other categories. They're top 3 in a lot of the hitting categories, but just couldn't do it at the same time. And they're doing it now. They're feeling like they're coming more of a team, and that was the biggest thing. After that 3-3 stretch, they had a team meeting pretty much. Just like, let's figure this out. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out what's going on. And it's just been positive since then. As of right now, I feel like they have really 2 really dominant pitchers in Kelly Maxwell and Kirsten Deal. The third pitcher right now is kind of what, maybe you kind of worry about. Maybe Nicole May, is she as dominant as she should be? But overall, these 2 pitchers that are there, when those 2 go out there, you feel really comfortable with this team, especially when you get the bats that they have at this point in time where they're actually stringing together. So feel really good about OU at this point in time. This Bedlam series is this is the biggest series just because of all the implications on it. I mean, we talked about a 1-game lead over Texas, 2-game lead over Oklahoma State.
Sure.
You're trying to get that 1 seed, and so you have to win this series. You probably need to sweep this series really to be really comfortable, because you don't know what Texas is going to do with theirs. So,
and they have the tiebreaker.
Yeah, and the tiebreaker. So it's just like this is the biggest series. It's gonna be fun, like you said. A lot of people are gonna be out there. A lot of anticipation for this series. So I'll have a lot of coverage of this throughout the week. Leading up to this game.
Yeah, it's going to be a really fun series. Like you said, getting that third pitcher kind of figured out is key. Patty's talked about that many times. Back, I don't know, 2016 or 17, somewhere in there, whenever they really rode Paige Parker, like they just let her throw a jillion innings, basically. She decided after that, like, I don't want to ever do that again. I don't want to ask one pitcher to just carry us. And since then, they haven't had to. They've had 2 or 3, sometimes even 4, like really reliable, trusted arms that they can go to. So finding kind of that third piece, whether that be Nicole May, who's been there, done that, has won a bunch of titles, whatever it may be, that's key as you get into the postseason here. And they're in the home stretch. Softball's postseason always kind of sneaks up on you because their season, it just kind of happens a little quicker after spring football. Baseball's still got a few more weeks. Yeah. Softball, this is it. Final regular season weekend this week, and then Big 12 tournament, and then the tournament starts. So we're getting into it's like only big games the rest of the way at this point. So Gonna be fun. Gonna be fun to keep up with. James has been covering the team great, and so he'll be all over it. Become a VIP member and keep up with all his coverage on Sooners Illustrated. It's gonna be a fun weekend. Final Bedlam for who knows how long. All that whole spiel
that's true too. That's true.
That whole spiel we've talked about with every other sport. And last Big 12 series there at in Norman, so it'd be pretty cool. As far as baseball, I'll touch on real quick here on the back end. 9-game winning streak going into yesterday. Had a doubleheader against Texas. Lost both games. They're still in first place, just like softball, by a game with 3 weeks to go. Everything's still out in front of that team. They certainly are firmly in the hosting conversation. I think probably on the fringe still of the super regional hosting conversation. If you win the Big 12, you're going to host, and that's just a matter of kind of where you fall after that. But team is really good. It's an unfortunate day yesterday, losing both ends of that doubleheader. The same exact thing happened to them against West Virginia about a month ago, where they won the opener and then had to play a doubleheader to wrap up the series and lost both ends of it. I know the teams really wanted to avoid a doubleheader, but most people in Oklahoma, everybody's aware Saturday was not a great day for weather. So they didn't play on Saturday. They went doubleheader yesterday, lost both ends. The last game had a bizarre finish where it got called short after 7 innings. OU was down by 2. They called it in the top of the 8th because after like an hour and a half of lightning delay, the official ruling was that the Big 12 decided they had to resume the game by 10 o'clock, and they weren't going to be able to do that. That was the official ruling. I don't know if that's actually it was weird. It's hard to paint a full picture, but the teams, we were told when they went to the delay at 8:30 or whatever it was, we're going to wait this out. They're going to finish this game, that they were committed to doing that. But then after an hour and a half, like all of a sudden it was like, nope, we're going to, even though it seemed like they were getting close to being out of the weather window, Skip Johnson, David Pierce, Texas head coach, had a conversation on the field, just the two of them, and it didn't seem particularly friendly or that they were on the same page on what – I don't know what happened. It was a strange thing, but they ended up calling the game. Texas wins, and OU wasn't happy with how that ended, and that's a tough way for that series to end. A huge game, a series rubber match, ends 2 innings short with the way OU can hit the ball and score. They had 10 runs yesterday. You felt like you still had a very good chance in that game. So that's a tough way to finish. But I still feel great about the way the team's playing right now. They're hitting at a very high level. The team scores 8, 9, 10 runs every game right now. They're playing very, very well. Their schedule is pretty favorable down the stretch. They got a big series in Lubbock this weekend against a Texas Tech team that is kind of reeling right now. And then they play Baylor at home and Cincinnati to end the year. That's 2 of the worst teams in the conference. So with a 1-game lead with 9 to go, 9 Big 12 games to go, I still feel pretty good. You go get 2 this weekend, you're absolutely in the driver's seat. So we'll see what they do. They play Oral Roberts in Tulsa tomorrow. I'm actually going to get up there for that game, and we'll go from there. But they're still in good shape. Everything they could have hoped for before the season is still out in front of them, which I think is the main thing. Winning the Big 12, hosting a regional, all that is absolutely completely on the table as we get ready to flip into May. So it's going to be a fun finish for that sport as well. I said before, we are spoiled with the diamond sports here. Other sports, other schools that like they either just don't even have softball and their baseball's not any good. It's like, how do you fill May? Like, what do you talk? I mean, there's no football. Yeah. What do you do?
You take vacation.
We don't have to. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Tom's getting out of here, man. We don't
have to worry about that. All right, I think that's it for us. Tom is going to be on vacation, so that'll be it for Tom. We'll see him. I don't even know when. He may never come back. He may just hang out in
there.
Europe.
Yeah, I'll be back after Mother's Day. So
there you go. The post Mother's Day show. What was that? May 13th, I think. So, programming out, Colin and I show usually on Thursdays, the recruiting heavy show will be on Friday this week. I got some high school baseball stuff on Thursday, so we're going to bump that show back unless weather comes, and we may move it back. I don't know, but right now it's planned for Friday. And then James and I will rendezvous back with you next Monday to recap anything that happens in the football portal, whatever else. We'll probably do some more Diamond Sports after that big softball weekend. Obviously, there in Norman, and OU has a big weekend, or baseball has a big weekend for themselves as well in Lubbock. So we'll break that down a little bit on the Monday show next week also. That's it for now. We appreciate you so much for tuning in. As always, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And also, of course, subscribe to Sooners Illustrated, become a VIP member. And I think we're going to have I don't want to don't quote me on it. We might be able to work a special deal for our 1-year anniversary. I heard a little something about that maybe in the cards. Keep an eye out for that in a couple of days. But become a VIP member to get all the latest intel on the portal, recruiting side, team notes, everything from all the OU sports. It's the best way to keep up with OU and obviously all of our coverage. So that's it for now. For Tom and James, I'm Josh. We'll see you guys next time right back here on the Sooners Illustrated podcast.
See you.